wasn't supposed to stay long in this town. It was meant to be a quiet stop, a place to breathe, paint, and forget the noise of the city. But I guess peace isn't something you find. It's something that finds you, or in my case, something that haunts you. It was early morning when I saw her for the first time. The lake was covered in fog, the kind that makes everything look half dream, half memory. She was standing near the water, barefoot, her white dress brushing the surface like mist. Her name was Leela. She didn't say much that first day, just smiled, a smile that felt wrong and right at the same time. I was an artist back then, landscapes mostly. But that day, I wanted to paint her, the way the sunlight hit her hair, the sadness in her eyes. She looked like she was waiting for someone who never came. Every morning after that, she was there, sometimes reading, sometimes humming a song I'd never heard before, slow, sorrowful. We never talked about where she lived or what she did. She said she liked keeping her life light. I didn't understand what she meant until much later. One morning, I brought coffee. She laughed, said she hadn't had coffee in years. Why not? I asked. She looked away, smiling faintly. It keeps me up at night. It was a small joke, but something in her voice made my skin crawl. The way she said it, like she wasn't joking at all. After that, we became something, not lovers yet, but something close. She made me forget I was running from heartbreak. I stopped counting days, stopped caring about the world outside that lake. Then one day, I noticed something strange. Every time the sun started to set, she'd get restless. Her breathing would change. She'd look toward the woods, as if hearing something calling her name. When I asked what was wrong, she whispered, "I can't be out after dark." I laughed, thought it was a joke. But her eyes, they weren't joking. "Promise me," she said. "Promise me you'll never come looking for me after sunset." I nodded, and I meant it at the time. A week passed. We met every morning, talked about everything: art, faith, fear, love. But every evening, she disappeared before the sun touched the treetops. One night, I stayed by the lake alone. The water was still. The air felt heavy, almost electric. Then I saw something move on the other side, a shadow or someone. I called her name, nothing. The shadow slipped into the trees. When I told Leela the next morning, she looked terrified. She grabbed my hand and whispered, "If you see me after dark, run." That's when I started to notice things. The town seemed off. Locals avoided the lake after dusk. Old people crossed themselves when her name came up. I overheard two men whispering about the girl who died there years ago. When I asked who she was, one man looked me dead in the eye and said, "If you've seen her, don't go back." I didn't listen, because by then, I was already in love. Love makes you see what you want, not what's real. And what I saw in Leela was everything I'd been missing. But that's the thing about love in horror stories. It always begins beautifully and ends in blood. I just didn't know yet that I was falling for someone who wasn't supposed to exist. The days started melting together after that. Morning sunlight, coffee that went cold while we talked, the way she laughed whenever I pretended to be serious. It felt like I'd stepped outside time, as if the world only existed between sunrise and sunset. Leela loved small things: dragonflies on the water, the smell of rain before it came. She said small things remind you that life keeps moving, even when you're stuck. I didn't know she meant herself. Sometimes I'd catch her staring at the horizon with this faraway look, like she was counting the hours left. I thought she feared losing me. Now I think she was terrified of losing herself. I painted her one afternoon, the sunlight on her face, the faint shimmer of mist behind her. When I showed her, she touched the canvas and whispered, "You shouldn't have done that." I laughed, asked why. She said sometimes art keeps a soul where it doesn't belong. I thought it was just another one of her strange, poetic things. That evening, clouds rolled in. She looked at the sky and went pale. "Storms make the nights hungry," she said. Hungry. Before I could ask, she kissed me quick, trembling, then ran toward the woods. I called her name, but thunder swallowed my voice. The rain hit before I reached my cabin. The power went out. For a moment, I saw a figure through the lightning, tall, wrong-shaped, dragging something toward the trees. I convinced myself it was nothing. People see strange things in storms. When I saw her the next morning, she looked exhausted. Dark circles beneath her eyes, hands shaking, but she smiled like nothing had happened. "Rough night," I joked. She just said I told you never to look for me after sunset. Then softer, "You have no idea what watches the dark." I wanted to ask what that meant, but she changed the subject, told me stories of old lovers bound by moonlight, of promises that chained spirits to the earth. That's when I noticed she never touched the food I brought. She'd hold the cup, breathe in the scent, but never sip. One morning, I insisted. "Just a taste," I said, lifting the cup to her lips. She stared at me, eyes glassy, and whispered you wouldn't want to see me hungry. I froze, and then, as if realizing what she'd said, she laughed it off, called it a joke, but her hands were trembling so badly. She spilled the coffee across the grass. That afternoon, she asked me about my scars, the ones on my wrist. I told her the truth: heartbreak, loneliness, the feeling that nothing mattered. She looked at me for a long time and said, "Then maybe that's why you found me. Broken things attract each other." Her voice cracked on the last word. We sat there until the clouds burned orange. When she stood to leave, I tried to walk her home again. She shook her head. "You'd lose your way before you found my door." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every shadow outside looked like her shape. Every gust of wind whispered my name in her voice. At 3 a.m., I thought I heard someone humming that same slow tune she loved. I opened my window, and the smell of the lake came in, thick and rotten. When I looked down, muddy footprints led from the water to my porch and stopped right beneath my window. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The humming grew louder. Then silence. The next morning, she was waiting by the lake like always. Dry hair, clean dress. No sign she'd walked through mud or rain. I asked if she'd come to my cabin. She smiled sadly and said if I ever do, it won't be me. Something in her eyes made me believe her. Still, I stayed, because love makes you believe the impossible is worth the risk. I kept telling myself the stories about curses and ghosts were just folklore, that she was real, living, breathing. But somewhere deep down, a part of me already knew I wasn't saving her. She was waiting for the night she'd stop pretending to be human. And that night came sooner than I expected. I told myself I'd never break her rule, never after sunset. But love does strange things to reason. That night, she didn't show up by the lake, not at sunset, not when the stars came out. I waited. Then I saw the lantern light, flickering deep between the trees. Her voice drifted through the woods, that soft humming again, the tune she always sang when she was calm. I followed the sound. Each step felt heavier, like the earth didn't want me there. The deeper I went, the colder it got. I remember whispering to myself, Leela, but the humming stopped. Then I saw her, standing by an old tree, her back turned to me. Her white dress was damp, soaked. Something dark trickled from her hand. I thought it was water, until I smelled iron. She turned slowly, and for the first time, I couldn't recognize her face. The beauty was still there, but twisted, eyes too wide, skin too pale, and her mouth, it wasn't smiling anymore. She said you weren't supposed to see this. I took a step closer. My voice shook. What's happening to you? She looked down at her arms. Faint blue veins pulsing under her skin, like something alive beneath. Every night, she whispered it, takes a little more of me. What does? I asked. She just said one word. The hunger. The air turned thick. My chest hurt like the forest itself was pressing down. I saw movement, figures behind her, half visible in the shadows. Their eyes glowed faintly, like fireflies. They're the ones who came before, she said. I wanted to run, but her voice held me there. When I was alive, she said, I waited here for the man I loved. He never came, so I walked into the lake. Her voice broke. The water gave me a second chance, but it wasn't a gift. It was a curse. Every night, she continued, I returned to the lake. The water remembers what it took. It calls me back, piece by piece. I reached for her hand, cold, not like the cold of night, the cold of something that shouldn't move, but does. You can't love me past the dark, she said. Woman you knew only exists beneath the sun. I whispered then, I'll love you there. She smiled sadly. Then you'll drown with me. The figures moved closer. I saw their faces, lifeless, hollow-eyed, dripping with lake water, and Leela's skin began to crack like porcelain, revealing something dark underneath. Run, she begged, please, before it chooses you too. But I didn't. I stepped closer and said then, let it choose me. I won't let you face it alone. The wind screamed. Her eyes turned black, and then everything went silent. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the shore. The sun was rising. My clothes were dry, my skin pale, and Leela was gone. The villagers found me wandering near the lake that morning. I told them I'd fallen asleep, but one of them, an old woman, stared at me for a long time. She said, you've met her, haven't you? The midnight girl. I asked what she meant. She only whispered, no man returns from her, lake the same. That night, I dreamt of her again, the same dress, the same voice. She stood by the water, whispering my name. Only this time, when I woke up, my feet were wet. The sun can't save you once you've looked into her eyes after dark, because the moment you do, you belong to her. The mornings after that were never the same. I'd wake up to sunlight on my face, but the world felt off, like everything was slightly misplaced. My reflection looked pale, my heartbeat slower. Sometimes I'd find drops of water on my pillow, and every night I heard her whispering, singing, calling my name through the lake mist. I told myself it was guilt, that I was just dreaming, but dreams don't leave footprints by your door. I started painting again to feel normal. Every stroke of the brush brought her face back. Every shade of blue reminded me of her eyes. And when I stepped back from the canvas, I froze, because she wasn't standing alone in the painting. There was someone beside her. Me. The villagers started avoiding me. They'd whisper as I walked past, "He's been touched by her." The one from the water. I tried to ignore it until I saw my own shadow move. Even when I stood still, that's when I knew something had followed me back. On the 6th night, I woke to find the lake mist had reached my porch. It curled around my feet like fingers. I heard her voice, soft, trembling. "You shouldn't have stayed," she whispered. And when I turned, she was standing right behind me. Her eyes were full of tears that weren't water. She looked more human than she ever had. "You're dying," she said every night. "The lake takes a little more from you." I didn't care. I told her then, "Let it. If that's the price to see you again." "You don't understand," she cried. "The lake doesn't just take life. It takes memory." I asked what she meant. She said it's already begun. That's when I noticed I couldn't remember the name of my mother or the city I was born in. Little things slipping away, like pieces of myself sinking under the surface. I begged her to tell me how to stop it. She said the only way to end the curse was for one of us to take the other's place in the lake, one life for another. I told her I'd do it without hesitation, but she shook her head. "I waited for you so I wouldn't be alone." She said, "Not so you could vanish too." Her hands touched my face, warm for a moment, then cold again, and in her eyes I saw it, flashes of her death. The storm, the water closing in, the scream she never finished. I tried to hold her, but she slipped through me like mist. Her voice came from everywhere at once. "The lake remembers. It always remembers." The next morning, her footprints led from the shore to my door again, but this time there were 2 sets. Every day after that, I lost a little more time. I'd blink and hours were gone. Sometimes I'd wake up by the lake with no memory of walking there. Once I found myself kneeling at the water's edge, my hands submerged. The surface was still, but underneath, something was moving. It looked like me, reaching up. I finally understood. The lake wasn't cursed because of her. It was cursed because of me. Every man who ever loved her kept her memory alive, and the lake fed on that love, pulling her back each night, trapping her between worlds. She wasn't haunting me, she was warning me. That night, I walked to the water. No fear, no hesitation. I saw her standing there, waiting, tears glistening like stars. She said you shouldn't have followed me this far. I told her I was already yours. She smiled, the first real smile I'd seen in weeks, and whispered then, remember me. Even when I forget you, the water remembers. When I woke, I was lying in the middle of the lake, alone. The mist had cleared. I felt peace for the first time. But when I looked at my reflection, it wasn't me anymore. I don't know how many days have passed. Maybe none, maybe 100. Time doesn't move here. It only echoes. The lake remembers everything. Every heartbeat, every promise, every lie whispered beneath the moon. When I touch the surface, I see faces. Hers first, always hers. Then others, dozens of them. Men, women, children, eyes wide with longing. All of them drawn here by something they thought was love. The lake doesn't kill. It keeps. It holds what the world forgets. I walk the shore at dusk now, like she used to. Sometimes I see her standing where I once stood, beautiful again. She doesn't know me anymore. The lake took her memories and left her heart behind. But sometimes, when the wind shifts, she'll pause, like she hears a voice she almost remembers. And then, for a heartbeat, she smiles. That's when I know she feels me. Somewhere between the ripples, I used to think curses were punishment, but maybe they're just stories that love refuses to end. One night, the old woman from the village came to the shore. She called into the fog, "Are you still out there, boy?" I wanted to answer, but the words wouldn't leave my throat. Only bubbles. She threw something into the water. A small wooden charm, carved with 2 names, Lila, Ethan, and whispered, maybe this time, it'll let you rest. But the lake doesn't rest. It keeps what it's given. That night, I dreamed of sunlight again. Leela was sitting beside me on the grass, smiling, warm, alive. "You remember me," she said. I nodded. "Then we're free," she whispered. When I woke, I wasn't by the lake anymore. I was beneath it. Light moves differently down here. Everything bends. The others float nearby, their faces peaceful now. I can't tell where the water ends and I begin. And through it all, her voice, "Ethan," she whispers, "stay until morning. Maybe then the lake will forget us." But the lake never forgets. It remembers every love story that ended here. Some nights, when the moon hits just right, you can see 2 figures walking by the water. A girl with silver hair and a man beside her. They don't cast shadows. They don't leave footprints. They just walk. If you ever find yourself near a lake that never dries, and you hear humming just before the fog rolls in, don't look toward the sound, because once you see her eyes, you'll never see daylight the same way again. Some loves aren't meant to be remembered, but the lake remembers for us all. If you were drawn into the story of the Midnight Girl, leave a light on tonight, because love might be closer than you think. Subscribe for more dark stories like this one, and remember, the most dangerous love stories always begin with a smile.